Hi there, my name is Lilia. I'm an English teacher who's working online and a voice coach, and today I'm going to share with you my 5 top ways on how to learn vocabulary. First of all, we need to make it very clear, why is learning vocabulary this hard? It may be very hard because you may have recorded a word for 100 of times but still you're unable to use it when the time comes, and later on when you come back to it you can't hear it, or if you hear it in the series it's very hard to recognise, or then just later on, when the time comes in a conversation, the best time for that word, you just remember it in hindsight and you're unable to bring it back to memory right immediately when the time comes. So why is it so hard? We're going to discuss my 5 top ways for learning vocabulary and actually using it later on in your speech. First of all, we need to tap into the very notion of learning. What does learning mean? Why is it so hard? So what is learning all about for you? Is it just about spotting a word and just putting it down into a notebook so you can return to it later and just writing a short translation next to it? Is it what it is all about? Is it what learning actually means for you? Well, to me, over experience, I've come to figure out the meaning of learning. So what is learning? First of all, when we identify which words we want to learn, we spot words somewhere. So we either hear words or we learn words on purpose as part of our English course. We just spot a word in a text and we think, oh, what a lovely phrase. Why don't I put it into my vocabulary notebook? And then you just record a word, you may record a little translation, or as we all get very clever with how we should record our vocabulary, you could just add a little definition in English next to it to draw a little picture, and there we go. But the truth is that we don't necessarily put that word into our memory at that very moment, doing all of this extra work in vain. So here's my first best way to learn vocabulary. When you're spotting a word, don't spot every single word that you don't know. The danger of that being that if you don't have a particular interest in that word, or if you don't have a particular need for learning that word, you may end up just completely ignoring it in the future. So the truth is that we learn best when we are into something, we're into listening to something that we genuinely like. And it does not necessarily have to do with learning languages. So we could be learning something that we're fairly into, but we're just doing that in English, learning about your hobby in English, listening to a video you like in English, really increasing your awareness in a third-party subject, but doing all of that in English. So when you hear a word or a phrase that you really want to learn, why don't you write it down, including the words that are surrounding it? Because actually, we don't just, when we speak, we don't come up with like random words in a sequence. What we actually do is we have those little patterns in our brains, so we know which words go with which words around them. Try picking the words that are important to you. So if your area of interest, say outer space exploration, why don't you put down the words that have to do with this area when you're reading something, and then think how you might use it in your own life. So why don't we talk about outer space missions and writing those down, or to do an outer space mission, or to take part in an outer space mission. All of those lovely expressions could be put into a vocabulary notebook and spoken out loud, as we will talk about later on in this video. So here's my best way number 2. Try to record your vocabulary well. I've recently revisited my vocabulary notebook I had when I went to school, and honestly I discovered that I have had to relearn all of the words and all of the lexical items that I have put in there. The reason is because I only wrote a word, so I had those very classic 2 columns in my vocabulary notebook. On the left I had the word, just one word, right? And on the right I had whatever the side is, and on the right I had just a single translation of that word. Sometimes I decided I was a little bit more courageous than that, and I decided to include a few other translations, including some of the less common translations for that word. The truth is, I did not actually know how to use that word within the context, and therefore I often failed to use that word when the opportunity was just around the corner, but I just couldn't do that. So here is my recommendation on that. When you're recording your vocabulary, make sure you're recording it properly. So why don't you include a little drawing if you're learning a name of a particular object? Or why don't you include a little definition if you're learning something more abstract? Try minimising translation when you're recording vocabulary. Try using more English, because when you're practicing a cognitive skill, which is to say speaking a language is a cognitive skill in itself, isn't it? So when you're practicing a cognitive skill, the more you do it, the better you become at it. So you need to keep practicing it. And if you're doing something in English, you keep teaching yourself to think in English too. So use your vocabulary recording stage as a way to improve on your English too, apart from your English lessons. I always advise my students to fill every moment of their lives with learning a little bit of English through possibly not directly learning it, but just trying to integrate a little bit of it into their everyday life and into their everyday routine. So you could also do that. You could extend on your English learning experience by filling your vocabulary notebook in English too. So this is something you could be doing, in your own good time, recording a little collocation, building a spidergram or a little mind map when you're recording new vocabulary. So this could be such a great time, and you could browse the dictionary and learn how to work with the dictionary. Generally, you're expanding on the number of skills that you have when it comes to learning English, and generally you're increasing the chances that when the time comes, you will have a wide range of patterns in your brain that will allow you to interject that word right into a sentence when the time comes. Number 3, say out loud what you're recording into your vocabulary notebook. So once you've learned a word, you have besieged it with other words that go with it. So now it's time to speak it out loud. Say this word out loud. Just recording it, putting it down into your vocabulary notebook will not do. So you won't learn it, because written English is very different from spoken English. So we say things differently. We just, we throw little interjections every now and then when we speak a foreign language or when we speak any language. And the truth is that if you just, if you record a word into a vocabulary notebook, first, you won't be able to recognise it when another speaker says it. Secondly, you won't be able to produce it yourself, because you need to feel the taste of a word in your mouth. What I like to do when I'm learning new words is set myself a little challenge. Every time I learn a new word, I get very excited. Well, that's the nature of myself. I always get excited about learning. So when I learn a new word and say that's like really possibly like an interesting word, like omnipresent. So when I'm learning a word like that, I'll set myself a challenge to use it in my everyday routine, or like during that day, I'll try to use it either in an email or when talking to a friend or in a video. And as you may guess, I've learned omnipresent earlier in the morning today. So that makes me excited. I may set myself a challenge to use that word 3 or 4 times over the daytime when I'm learning it, because that maximises my chance that I will actually learn that word in a context. So working out the context and saying the word out loud. Often I would ask my students when they're learning a new word to use it in a comment when they're just commenting on someone's Instagram photo or a video on YouTube or anything like that. So just commenting on social media is such a great way to practice the everyday natural English that we all use on a day-to-day basis. So try doing that too. The little cognitive, or should I say mental, activities that you can do to revisit the vocabulary you have previously learned is go word shooting. So you learn a word and you start spotting it around you. So when you hear a speaker saying that word, you go like, yeah, great, fantastic. I've learned that word and here it comes. Magic. Surprise, surprise. So this is something you could do, another fun way to incorporate more vocabulary, revisiting into your everyday life. Plus, when you hear a speaker having used a word that you have recently learned, you can think to yourself, wow, so which context did they use it in? Why did they use it? Why did they choose that word? And suddenly you're picking up the vocabulary notebook and you jot down the context and the collocations and the words surrounding that in that very context. So for every word, I would recommend leaving a little bit of free room in your vocabulary notebook so you can come back and add new things and add new contexts and new expressions and new collocations for that particular word. That really helps. It does. I promise you. We all have those little chunks of time, like almost leftovers of time, when we never know what we want to do at that particular moment. So we may be on our phone and then we have just, 7 to 10 minutes before a lesson starts, or we're on a train and we want to fill our time in a way. So what we want to do is grab our vocabulary notebook, which is always around us. It doesn't have to be a notepad like that. It could be really small, so that it fits into your bag or your rucksack. So just grab it and you revisit the vocabulary you have put in there. So it's really great because learning vocabulary is all about revision. It's all about revisiting the vocab you had previously written into your vocabulary notebook. So you could just, grab it, or you could just put it on your phone and just read it and try to use it in your head. Try being creative with this vocabulary. I always advise my students to own the vocabulary so they can rock it afterwards. So try using the words that you had learned one day before to talk about the surroundings you can see around you. So it could be a really fun way to integrate new vocabulary into your everyday active lexis. So just do that. If you're in a train, the omnipresent smell of people in summer, well, that's a really fun and creative way to say it, but generally you get the idea. Here's my final way to learn vocabulary. There are specialised vocabulary projects, apps and Google Chrome and extensions and everything that you can use to integrate more vocabulary to everyday life. They often focus on revision. Recently, my colleague Anna and I have started a thing that is called a vocabulary marathon. So what it is all about is letting you guys practice new vocabulary that we decide on either weekly or every fortnight or every month. So we decide on that vocabulary divided into topics, and what we actually do is we give you guys a chance to use it creatively by either means of creative written tasks or by spoken tasks where you have to record your voice and send it to our little studio where we give you a check and write you a little bit of feedback where you can see the good things and the not so good things about your performance during each week. So this is what we do, and if you'd love to register for a marathon, make sure that you open the description box below and go there and click on the link of the marathon. It's really cool. So just investigate the website, and actually I can be your teacher in a way that does not require direct interaction. So I could be your teacher in your own good time. So generally, like Anna can. So Anna is my former student and she's really intelligent and she's really creative. Her page designs are always the best I have ever seen. So make sure you just go there and make your vocabulary shine as much as you can. Thank you very much for your attention, guys. You can always leave your comments down below saying which things you'd love to know more in terms of English. Are there any concrete questions that you'd love to ask me? I'll be so happy to shoot more videos for you, to share my experience with you. As our community is growing, that makes me very happy and really motivated to shoot more videos for you. So make sure you leave your comments, you pop in Facebook to say hello, or you just write me an email if you want to become my student. I'll talk to you very soon in my following videos. I hope you have a very productive week. Bye bye.